Hello everyone, I'm Elinor Olausen. I work with Kjetil in Universell in Norway. Is this on?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. And this is Judith
Yes.
Jansen. We both work nationally in each country. I'm in Norway and Judith in Netherlands.
That's correct. Yes. So that's my name, Judith. And I work at the Dutch Expert Center for Studying with a Disability. And we are called Handicap and Studie. You are called Universell. There's a difference. Think about it. We're going to tell a bit more about... Is this one? Yep. Well, about us. We already gave you a short introduction. And then tell you something about the European context, because we're both European countries and you're all European countries, and give you some small good examples we've met in our countries, just to inspire you. I think you have a lot of good practices as well. And feel free to interact. If you switch to the this one, maybe you can add something about it.
Yes, this is a tool. We usually recommend teachers to use it. It's a way of interacting with the audience. The audience can ask questions, and so we hope that you also want to ask questions or comment during the presentation. We will have some questions after the presentation, but if you have any ideas or comments during the presentation, we can have a look at it afterwards. And we will also have it open during the whole conference, so we hope we can have some good discussions there. It's on, the website is todaysmeet.com/UDL Europe. So I can repeat, todaysmeet.com/UDL Europe. And what you do is just write your nickname. It could be your name, or it could be anonymously, so you don't have to say your own name. And now I'll try to write Elinor in the nickname. I press join. And then I write the message. Feel free to write questions here. Right, and then you press say. Good. We already have some.
So you're on.
That's good.
Keep on going. So we'll switch back to our presentation, and we come back to this at the end of our presentation, so we can see then what you've all been adding to this tool. You want to say more about us?
Yeah. We are both national coordinators, Judith in Netherlands and me in Norway. Our main goal is to support higher education institutions in creating an inclusive learning environments. And our main strategy is universal design. It was interesting looking at our names, because Universell is quite a universal approach, and handicap and studie is quite surrounded again around the handicap. But it doesn't have to mean that. But that's just interesting to think about how the terminology, the effect of it. So we have different target groups. We support disability officers. We've done that for a lot of years. Recent years, we have supported a lot of academic staff and teachers, administrative staff, and also the ministries and all management in all levels of higher education. We also have different websites. We're not going to talk a lot about us right now, but if you're interested in our projects about individual accommodation or universal design, feel free to visit our web pages, handicapstudie.nl and universell.no. And perhaps you have to use Google Translate on that one.
Probably, yeah. Okay, and I can talk a bit about European context. That's quite interesting. I think that we're here again talking about UDL. It's started, as we think, well, almost 5-6 years ago, that we got all inspired by casts and their thinking about UDL. It started, as we can see it in Belgium, the people from CIHO, they started calling it the UDL and asking people from CAST to come over and inspire us to think about UDL. And recently you have this wonderful UDL License to Learn project. So we just started within a couple of years, the last couple of years, talking and sharing the UDL good practices and ideas. I think that's very nice. And we learned this morning that we will take more years to be more part, people have been part of UDL as well. Our focus in Europe, and that's, I think this is the reason that we started with these organizations, is highly on higher education. So that's, I think that's a bit different than in the USA, where they started also at primary education. And we have a systematic and holistic approach in it. We just start working with it and start trying and start sharing. As Shetel already mentioned, we don't have, our partners are not really are not really trained pedagogues, but also the disability coordinators. So that's also different. And of course, we talk about students and not pupils. So that's important for. I think we now see as the European context, and we can make a European context together within a couple of years.
Right. So, there. So we have also identified ourselves as a stakeholder in this process, because we all work nationally in each country with this topic. And in Norway, we know that UDL started nationally with a strategy and with a vision. And then we had the EU project that Kjetil told about. So we have a huge role in presenting the ideas from top down. But when we went around in the higher education institutions, we found out that a lot of teachers and administrative staff and disability officers did a lot of practice that was innovative and inclusive. So we also know that there's a lot happening around, but they don't call it UDL necessarily. So that was something new we learned. When we, as a part of the project, we made the best practice guidelines. And now we're starting to implement it at different institutions in Norway and other countries in Europe. So we need, or it's really necessary to adjust the guidelines to their context. So if you use the guidelines in your context, you really need to be aware that you have perhaps a different context than what we had when we wrote them. We also have made a national website or a guideline in Norway called Guideline for Universal Design, vu.no. That's more like a toolkit for academic staff. It's possible to use Google Translate there too, but it's also, so you can, that we made that nationally, but you could also make it locally or regionally at your campus. Another thing we can do is make courses. It could be physical or it could be online. And in Norway we have made some nano courses, like this small, it's like a MOOC, but it's more like smaller, it's small pieces of courses where you use 5 minutes just reading a short text, or you could see a video clip. That's a nano course. And in Netherlands too, you have made a MOOC.
Yeah, we made a, well, we call it a OOC. It's not that massive because it's in Dutch, but it's our first steps in online education for teachers, and UDL is a big part of it as well. Also, just being a good teacher and support students, but also the UDL guidelines.
Right. Another thing we've done is to arrange workshops. We have basically made big workshop for disability officers, and we are going to have a big workshop nationally for academic staff, and also for management. And I think that it's important to think about the stakeholders as a collaboration, because you don't need just one workshop with the management, one workshop with academic staff. I think it's a good idea to mix them up, because we learned a lot when we invite both students and academic staff. They find so many new ideas together. And through the workshops, we also establish networks and committees for sharing best practice. We have made some pilots in Norway in certain departments. In the Department of Physics in the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, they work exclusively with the student and teacher teaching culture. So the student and teachers arrange workshops together in order to have more inclusive learning environments. They also, or Universell, also follow 5 until 8 teachers during the whole year and coaching them and make a needs assessment, see, okay, what do they do of inclusive practice the way they do it right now? What can they do differently? So we follow them during the whole year. We just started up that, so perhaps we have to come back next year and describe what we've done. And another pilot we are developing is including disability and terms of diversity inside the teacher training programs. And that could be done nationally, or it could be done locally. We're trying out a pilot now in Trondheim, and hopefully we will make it nationally. Right, so we're actually interested in knowing who you are. How many academic staff do we have here today? Raise your hands. Right, so many more than I imagined, actually. It looks almost like 50% or something. And what about disability officers? Raise your hands. Right.
Less more, yeah.
Yes. What about management in all kinds of levels?
Well.
Yes. That's nice. You have different roles also, I think, because you raised your hands twice. And students. Good.
Some of them, yes.
Good. And national coordinators? We have some.
We have some,
All
yeah.
of them are here. Yes. So the bottom line is that it's so, like Kjetil also said, it's so important to see the different stakeholders collaborating upon UDL in order to implement it.
Yep. So the second part of our presentation, we just promised you some good practices, and we're really looking forward to show that it's just a couple of them. Just mention some of them. For example, very important, we call them the UDL teacher. And the teacher as the guy or girl or woman or man who is really into UDL. We need them. So probably one of them is sitting here as well. Might be you. Let's tell a bit about 2 Dutch teachers. We call them our early adapters. They called Ron Barends and Rolien Bos. They're not here, but they tried, but they couldn't. They work at NAL, University of Applied Science in Leeuwarden in the Netherlands in the north. And they are really good teachers for, I think, 25 years. They were really into being a good teacher. And then suddenly they heard something about UDL. They were asked for another European project, UDL Net, it's called. And they were just asked, can you add something about UDL? They didn't know anything about UDL, but that's the same as a lot of us. When they did see the guidelines, they were thinking, hey, that's what I'm doing, but now I have got an extra framework. They are teaching IT skills at secondary grade teacher education, and last years using the guidelines, but also using their, their immense ability to be a good teacher. They created an pedagogy. That's the pedagogy. Sorry about that module, and used UDL guidelines in it. And now all teachers, all students of this teacher education create a portfolio in their own way about their IT skills and didactics by using firm goals and flexible means. So they just all have to make this portfolio in their own way. And hey, like students, the first one started and the second said, I can do better. And the third one said, I can do different, I can be better as well. So all these portfolios are becoming really interesting. And the assessment on this portfolio is easy. Just the student mentions the moment he's finished, he just uploads them, and teachers are able within 48 hours to check the portfolio and say, okay, you passed this portfolio test. And so this also means flexibility in time and place. The student decides which moments he or she is finished. And by building this portfolio, they also provide themselves with different new material using IT skills in their classroom or whatever. So it's win-win for them, win-win for the teachers who look at these portfolios, because they also have to learn their IT skills to be able to take a good look at the portfolio. So this is, I think, a very good example of good teaching, and UDL guidelines are coming together even in assessment.
Right. And we have another example from Norway, Carl Fredrik Sørensen. He's a teacher in software engineering at Norwegian University of Science and Technology. And he teaches for 300 students. And he was quite tired of being the only one who talked in his own lessons. He tried to include the students and ask questions, but they didn't answer. So he wanted to do something different, so he flipped the classroom. Have you heard about flipping classroom before? Yes. I saw some people not nodding. It's about making some video clips and showing a lecture before the class, and then when you come to the class, you work with the other students on problem-based assignments. And he did that. So the students had multiple sources of information. They got much more active. They did a lot of assignments where they had to find what kind of tools they needed inside in order to reach the target. And he used a lot of multimedia as support in lectures. I will show you some of examples later. He increased the learning through feedback because he used a tool called Kahoot, which made him, it's up in the left corner, Kahoot. Do you know Kahoot? It's a game-based feedback tool where you can interact with the students, you can make questions, quizzes, and what he did was making a lot of questions during presentations or during the class, and then students answered, and then he knew what kind of subjects he needed to use more time on. So a lot of teachers don't include the students, and then they don't know what kind of issues they need to use more time on. Another tool is a Padlet. That's something you can use when you brainstorm in classes. You can use it when the students are working in groups. Today's meet, have you seen now? Carl Fredrik used the Office Mix in the ordinary package. So it's for free, and you only make short video clips you film yourself in front of the computer, so it's quite easy to use. And he didn't use a lot of time on doing this. So it was quite interesting. And it's important to know that it's about what Katie said earlier. It's so important to reflect upon why you use certain tools, because it could be a good supplement to your lecture, but it doesn't have to be accessible for all. So keep in mind that it has to be accessible, and then it's a good supplement, not an alternative. It seems that we have fixed mindsets when we design our physical surroundings and auditoriums. And probably a lot of people think that it's impossible to improve or to innovate the lecture because it's so difficult to engage with each other and have group work. But when Carl Fredrik had lectures, and he also had group work in the big auditoriums, because he didn't mind that the seats were like they were and things like that. So he encouraged the students to have group work in the auditorium. And in this picture, we had the speed date. The students had to meet each other and discuss on different subjects. So that was also interesting.
Yeah, and to add something about using the space, I'll go back to the Dutch example I just mentioned. Ron and Rolien, the two teachers, they just built an own UDL classroom 3 years ago. They went into an empty classroom, put up some tables and chairs, used their own resources to buy cheap laptops and so on, and they created their own UDL classroom. I'm going to show you a small video clip. They are using themselves to be able to convince other ones to use a UDL classroom. If you're not seeing very well, it's not a video clip of Coldplay, but it's actually students and teachers just moving around stuff in the classroom. So. So that's their classroom. So we continue with the students, of course, the very important stakeholders. And you can add something about a student telling a very good story.
Yes, because remember the example with Carl Fredrik. In his class, there was a student, not blind, it says blind here, but a student with 20% vision. She participated in the classroom, and she had a lot of troubles earlier participating, but when he flipped the classroom, it was really good for her, and she explains why right now.
Hi everyone, my name is Nora, and today I'm going to be talking about the student perspective on the flipped classroom. So last year I was lucky enough to try flipped classroom, and here are some of my experiences. Just before I start telling you about it, I'm going to give you a little bit of context about myself. So I study computer science, and as a student I am in a kind of a special position because I'm visually impaired. And ever since I was a child, my vision was far below normal, and I was tested once to see how much help I need in a school setting. Then it was concluded that I would need a lot of help and a lot of adjustment to function normally in school and to follow the classes like everybody else. So after that examination, I got some things to help me, like some special lamps and some special tables that could be lifted up to see the book better. And I even got a binocular to see the blackboard. And needless to say, I was not very happy about this because when I was young I felt kind of weird and nerdy enough as it was, and sitting in the first row with a binocular would not really make that better. So I always thought that in order for me to follow the normal school system, I would need some kind of miracle, like some kind of robot eyes or something like that. Lucky for me, what I needed was something much simpler, the flipped classroom. And now I'm going to tell you about 3 reasons why I think flipped classroom works so well for me and why it will work for other students. So first of all, there are more sources of information in flipped classroom. What do I mean by this? Well, in normal education, there are mainly 2 ways to gather information. One is the blackboard, and the other is the book. And if you're like me, and you can't really see the blackboard, then you are missing out on 50% of the total information. And that is a lot. And remember how I said in the beginning that I am in a special situation? Well, this is not really the case, because even though I can't see the blackboard because of my eyes, other students can't follow it because of other reasons. Some people have reading difficulties, concentration difficulties, and some people just learn in a little bit of a different pace than what is shown on the blackboard. And I feel like missing out on 50% of the information because of those things is a really harsh punishment. In flipped classroom, there are more than one way to learn the material and gather the information. Because what we had last year was that we had access to videos of the lectures. We did have some classes, really short ones, that showed things on the blackboard, but we also had forums where we could ask for help. And the best thing of all is that we had other students around to help us. And this is really good because when you have other people around, the sources you can get information from just increase in a way that you could not even predict, because what happens is that some person will say in the group, oh, I found a great website where you can learn the material from. Or someone will say, oh, I worked in software development, that was the subject I took, and I can help you with those things. So suddenly you get many, many more sources of information because of the people. The second thing is that in flipped classrooms there is more time for the teacher to give feedback. Now, before I had tried this flipped classroom last year, I was at school here for maybe 3 years, and never during that time did a professor come up to speak to some of the students. And this is understandable because the professor is holding the lecture and the students are kind of sitting in their own world, and rarely the professor has time to go up and talk to some of the students. I also got surprised when I came into university about how little feedback actually is given. Because sure, you get a grade, like you do well on a test or you do badly on a test, but for example, when you do badly, you never really get feedback. repeat the subject. So when I was preparing for jobs, going on jobs, use that knowledge afterwards to go out into the real world. Thank you.
So, yeah. It's a very good example, and she's very good at telling her story. We don't have much time left, but we have a presentation left, but we'll just shortly, we can talk more about the other stakeholders, of course. There's the disability officer, and we have just a small good example of, let me pronounce his name, Torvald Abrahamsen. He's here somewhere, I think. Yes, he's there. And you have done a great job, I think, at your university in organizing an introduction course for all students. And I heard it's very successful. And maybe we can catch up with you if you're around here and you can tell more about it. But it's a very important, good practice, I think, for working and providing students a good start. Good start with starting the study, and you arranged that very well. The other stakeholder, of course, is the manager. We also spoke about him. It's a very important role in the UDL practice, and we provide 2 examples, and we just skip to the last one. This is an example of our country as well. We were lucky to work together with a university to provide ourselves with a flex scan, not ourselves, but the university with a flex scan. It's in Dutch yet, but we're looking forward to translate it into English. It's a way of scanning the state of your education or your teaching process. It's you can scan by the phase of development of your education process. It's from the first level that you have traditional education until the 4th level you have flexible education. So there are 4 levels, and there are 8 policy issues like information and awareness, or the curriculum process, or the teacher, the examination. It's a really complete scan to just take a look at it together, just sit down. Takes 2 hours, 2.5 hours to scan the situation of your lesson and your education, and in a structural way have a good talk and see where you can start making your teaching and education more flexible. So I can tell you more about it if you like to. So there we were with the stakeholders, with all of you, and just mention some good practice. Keep on sharing the good practice, and especially if you can, Dylan can switch to the 2 days meet again. There's a lot of things going on. Just keep on busy there, and we just mention it. Keep it open. I see some good questions here, but maybe you have live questions as well for us. Now, then we can turn to the 2 days meet and have not so live, but still live interaction at the meet. So,
I think we're out of time, actually.
yes. So thank you very much.
Thank you.